A guy named Lou DMs me, right? And he says, I dated this woman who I don't think was entirely human. I think she was a succubus. Whether she was a succubus or this woman was just a little freaky, I will let you decide. But if you're new here, this is Spooky Serious Storytime, the series where we share listeners' allegedly true stories about the creepiest or most unbelievable things that they've never told anyone before. And I figure with Valentine's Day coming up, let's do some dating stories. So Lou says that this took place about 15 years ago. He was in his mid-20s. Lou starts hanging out with this new group of friends, and they're all guys. They're all really cool. They all get along really well with Lou, but also in this friend group is this one woman that he calls Sally for this story. And Sally is stunning. She's beautiful, but Lou also knows that she's dated every single guy in this friend group. Some of the relationships were serious, others were not, but Lou knew that at least one of the men had been engaged to Sally at one point. It had ended on mutual terms, and they got along. So Lou was like, I don't really care. They were really cool people. I liked hanging out with them, and there didn't seem to be any drama. But Lou was dating this woman we'll call Maggie, and Maggie hated Sally, but Lou always thought that it was just because she was a little bit jealous of Sally because Sally was so gorgeous. He said he had been with Maggie for a long time, and she really didn't have anything to worry about. So he always did his best to reassure her. He's like, look, there's no feelings here. She's dated like everybody else, and she's just kind of one of the guys. Maggie was not having it, and she did not want Lou around Sally at all. She's like, she just gives me bad vibes. I don't care if you don't have feelings for her. I would prefer if you didn't go out with them when she's there. And Lou's like, look, it's fine. And this actually became a point of tension between Lou and Maggie for a lot of it, and they ended up breaking up. It wasn't because of Sally or anything like that. I guess there were some other problems in the relationship anyway. Regardless, Maggie continues warning him not to hang out with Sally. She's like, she still gives me bad vibes. I just don't think you should date her. But fast forward a little bit, Lou is hanging out with this friend group like every single day for a period of 18 months, and Sally is almost always there. For a lot of this period, Sally was actually in a relationship with a different man, but they ended up breaking up sometime in this period. And one weekend, the big friend group decides that they're all going to go on a weekend trip because everybody is pretty much single, and they end up getting a few hotel rooms and sharing some beds. And Lou said he had no ulterior motives. He had no plans to share a bed with Sally, but that's just kind of the way that the cards landed. And he had always thought of her as a friend up to this point, even though he thought she was pretty, but that was pretty much the extent of it. But they end up going to sleep after everybody hangs out. There's like no hanky-panky, nothing going on, but he's awoken from this dream, and it's kind of a steamy dream, if you know what I mean, and he looks over and he's shocked because Sally's in the bed next to him, engaged with herself, I guess is how I should put it. He rolls over, pretends he's just asleep and he didn't see anything. But this night was the start of what became like a pattern of seduction on Sally's part. He said she would often invite him over, in which he would answer the door with no clothes on, or she would invite him into the bathroom while she was changing, things of that nature. He said he was doing his best to act normal, but she was constantly like, you should come over before we go meet up with the rest of the guys. And then she would change in front of him, and he never acted on it and she never acted on it. But over the course of the next few weeks, he began to be more and more attracted to her. One of the things that he found most appealing about her was her scent. He said it was just intoxicating. And he said, I've noticed the way that people smell before, but this was like something else entirely. And I would think of that smell long after I had left, or I would catch a whiff of it, and it would just make me kind of desire her. But he still doesn't act. He actually starts dating another woman, which doesn't really go anywhere. And Sally continued flirting with him even after he told her that he was seeing another woman. I guess one day Sally calls him up. She's like, how's it going with this new woman? And he tells her, oh, it didn't really work out. And she goes, well, why don't we go on a friend date? Let's get some dinner, like without all the other guys. And he's like, you know what? I got nothing else to do. So he ends up meeting up with her. Going into it, he felt a little bit awkward, so he decided he was actually going to invite the rest of the guys, but they were all busy or unavailable that evening, and so it ends up just being him and Sally. And that date ended up in Sally's bed. Lou says that that was a huge mistake because this began a period of 8 months in which he basically completely lost himself. He ended up dropping out of his degree program. He went into a deep depression, and it caused this huge rift between one of his close friends and him. And that was one of Sally's exes, naturally. He said in this period, Sally pretty much just drained him entirely, mentally, physically, and she seemed to really enjoy the turmoil that she caused between him and the rest of the friend group. He said even though he knew that this relationship was toxic, was bad for him during this period, he could not leave her. But after 8 months, he finally had the courage. He was like, you know what, it's done. And he left Sally and actually began dating another woman. But the second that Sally said that she wanted him back, he left this new other woman, a decision that he said he still feels bad about because it left the other woman very hurt. Going back to Sally was a huge mistake too. And that's when things got really, really weird. And when he started thinking that she might be doing something else that was not just simple seduction. Night, shortly after they had reconciled, he was over at her house and things were getting a little steamy, and she indicated to him that, let me think of how to put this. I'm going to heavily censor this, but use context clues, okay? She indicated to him that she wanted to make an incision in his skin with a sharp object and drink the liquid that courses through all of our veins. Said when she said this, he thought she was joking, but then she pulls out a kit that indicates that she has done this before and that she intends to do it to him. And he said he wanted to please her, so he said, okay, what could it hurt? So he lets her, okay? And he said the second that she started drinking that liquid that courses through his veins, she changed completely, and it was not even somebody he recognized. He said she pulled her head back and she was already really pale, but now her skin was translucent. Her eyes had turned completely black, like he couldn't even see her pupils, and she let out this blood-curdling scream. As she screamed, this liquid drips out of the side of her mouth, and that scared him. And he said, all of a sudden, I felt very dizzy. I didn't feel well. And she indicated that she wanted to make the incision wider and continue, but he told her that he wasn't feeling well. And this sent Sally into a complete rage where she flipped out. She started screaming at him and destroying things all over the apartment. They ended up getting over that fight. They continue seeing each other, but he said he never was able to shake that image of her face changing in front of him when she did that from his mind. And so he started trying to spend more time away from her. And he said every time he was around her, it felt like he was in this like haze, like she just had all of his energy. He couldn't focus on anything else. But as he spent more time away from her, the haze would last for like a day, and then he would start to be clear-headed again. Said with each day apart, he would start to get more energy back and feel more like himself. But when he started really feeling like himself and kind of forgetting her, all of a sudden he would catch a whiff of her and she wouldn't even be anywhere around him. But it was like her scent, that one that intoxicated him, would fill the car or whatever room he was sitting in. And all of a sudden it was like he was being sucked back to her. They did end up breaking up finally when he found out that she had been seeing another guy in the friend group, one of her exes, behind his back. And as a result, he dove into his career. He cut contact with pretty much all of those guys. Not before asking them if they were also intoxicated by her scent, but none of them knew what he was talking about. He was like, maybe it was just her pheromones and the way that they interacted with me, but like that scent followed me for years. And I ultimately ended up following my career and leaving the country for a little while, which ultimately severed ties completely. He said for a long time he would still smell her, but it's not like the way that you remember your grandmother's chicken parmesan and the way that it smelled. This was something else entirely. He said when I would smell it, or when I would remember smelling it, that memory would overwhelm all of my senses, like somehow I was supercharged and I felt like I had to get back to her. Never saw Sally again. And what I think is interesting about this, though, and what he said prompted him to send this story, is about 2 weeks ago, after not thinking of Sally in years, all of a sudden he was overwhelmed with her scent again. And he was like, wow, that's weird. And all of these memories came flooding back. And that's when later that day he logs on to social media. He didn't go looking for her, but sitting at the top of his social media feed is a suggested friend, which is Sally. And he said he briefly glanced at the photo, and even though it's been 15 years and she's in her like early 40s now, she looked the exact same as she did when she was in her mid-20s. He said, I'm not even gonna lie, I did feel a tug to investigate further, but I ultimately decided against it, and I hope that's the last that I ever see her or hear from her again. So what do you think? Was Sally human? How did she overwhelm him with her scent? If you have a spooky, scary story that you think nobody believed, especially if it's a dating one this week with Valentine's coming up, send it in. We would love to hear it.